Good Erev Shabbos, everybody. This week is the double parsha of Matos and Masei as we conclude the book of Bamidbar. Now, chapter 30 begins with the laws governing vows and promises. Lo yachel devaro, kol hayotzei mipiv ya'aseh. One shall not break his promise, and that which leaves his mouth he shall do. Now, keeping one's promise is an important law to know before entering Eretz Yisrael, especially when it comes to dedicating items to the Beit HaMikdash. However, I'd like to point out a more immediate need for the laws of vows and promises. Now, towards the conclusion of our parsha, chapter 32, heated negotiations are taking place between Moshe and the tribes of Reuven and Gad regarding their desire to inherit the newly acquired territories east of the Jordan. Moshe's response to the request was immediate and powerful. You're abandoning your brothers. You will demoralize them and cause them to lose heart. You'll be repeating the sin of the previous generation. You'll arouse the anger of God, which, by the way, we all know is never a good idea. Now, many commentators focus on Moshe's disapproval as essentially Reuven and Gad abandoning their fellow brothers in their time of need. But as the story unfolds, Reuven and Gad clarify their intentions and promise to fight along with their brothers in the quest to conquer Eretz Yisrael. And to seal the deal, they make an additional promise in chapter 32, verse 18, Lo nashuv al batenu ad hinchal b'nei Yisrael ish nachlato. We will not return to our homes until everyone in Israel is in possession of his portion. Now Moshe agrees with the deal, but warns, Hayotze mipichem ta'asu. That which comes out of your mouth, you shall do. Essentially, you got to keep your word. Now, what makes this interesting is Moshe uses almost the exact same phrasing he used in the beginning of the parsha when teaching the laws of vows and promises. Take a look. Chapter 30, verse 3, K'chol hayotzei mipiv ya'aseh. That deals with promises. And later on in chapter 32, verse 24, Hayotzei mipichem ta'asu. Regards to Reuven and Gad, keep your promise. Now, the Orach Chaim comments that Moshe made it plain that as far as his own conditions were concerned, he had only obligated Reuven and Gad to remain for the conquest. Anything over and beyond were conditions that he imposed upon themselves. Now, the greatness of these tribes is that they kept their promise and went way beyond what Moshe had expected of them. The promise was made without a condition of a timetable, and only after the fact, if we do the math, 7 years to conquer Eretz Yisrael and 7 years to settle it. That's 14 years of self-imposed separation from their families. That's a lot of missed birthdays. And for me, these past 5 months have been personally difficult, not being able to visit with my children and grandchildren in Eretz Yisrael. Now, Moshe's words to Reuven and Gad make a perfect bookend to the parsha. Hayotzei mipichem ta'asu. That's what leaves your lips, you shall do. Now, the tribes of Reuven and Gad model for all of us the great lengths one must go in order to keep one's promise. In the book of Yeshua, chapter 22, verses 4 and 5, Moshe's successor publicly testifies to the successful completion of Reuven and Gad's promise, which had taken 14 years of separation from their families and loved ones to fulfill. Lo azavtem es achichem. You haven't abandoned your brothers. Penu l'chu lechem, lo lechem al eretz achuzeschem. And now it's time to go home and take possession of your land. You kept your word. So if you care, please share. Thanks for listening. Shabbat Shalom.